It's time for Supply Chain Now, broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Heard around the world, Supply Chain Now spotlights the best in all things supply chain: the people, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. And now, here are your hosts.
Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's episode. On this episode, we're kicking off a little mini end-of-year series, gaining insights from our hosts here at Supply Chain Now and creating new content throughout the end of the year and to kick off 2021. Today, we're going to be working really hard to raise your supply chain IQ with the very talented, uber talented Enrique Alvarez. A quick programming note before we get started. If you enjoy today's podcast, be sure to check us out wherever you get your podcasts from and subscribe for free so you don't miss a single conversation like this. All right, no further ado, I want to bring in our esteemed guest here today, Enrique Alvarez, Managing Director with Vector Global Logistics. But equally as important, he's host of our very popular Logistics with Purpose, which is editor approved, our producer's rubber stamp of approval, his favorite series. And Enrique, you are hosting, basically creating our new Supply Chain Now in Espanol programming. So good afternoon, Enrique.
Hey, Scott. Great being here with you as always. It's been an exciting journey, very interesting year at many different levels, but I'm happy and thankful for closing it down hopefully soon and looking forward to 2021.
We all are, for sure. Well, you have been, I'm convinced you've got several clones of you out there working, Enrique, because you're always getting it done. Mover and shaker, got a variety of ventures. And of course, Vector alone's been growing. And then your programming with us has been growing a lot. And we've heard a lot from the market. So we got to answer the call and ramp up our best practices and content we're sharing. But before we dive into business, let's just give our listeners and audience members a chance to get to know you a little bit better. So, share a couple things about yourself.
Yeah, no. So I'm Enrique Alvarez, originally from Mexico City, came to the U.S. to study B school. I work for the Boston Consulting Group, strategy consulting company before starting Vector Global Logistics, third-party logistics company, international freight forwarder, and diving into your show and Supply Chain Now. And I'm actually one of the, I wouldn't say the best fan, but I'm a really good fan of you and your show and Greg. And I've been very, I guess I'm thankful for having the opportunity to not only listening to your shows, but also having the opportunity to get to know you guys as individuals and on a more personal level. So it's been a good year.
Agreed. Very rewarding to collaborate with folks that are very intent on changing the world and tackling that huge priority with action and not lip service. And that's what you get with Enrique Alvarez. We've enjoyed our time collaborating the last couple of years, and we're only going bigger. 2021, when we're able to be in person more, and we look forward to bringing these conversations back front and center there at King Plow. All right, so let's talk about, goodness gracious, we all probably have so many takeaways from a year like 2020, including takeaways that's going to make us stronger in any year. But when you think of your short list of key takeaways personally or professionally, Enrique, what comes to mind?
Well, 2020 has been a year of a lot of challenges for everyone. But key takeaways for me as a business owner and managing director at Vector, it's been really, and I've said this before, it's just doubling down on our culture, right? We have a very unique results-based culture, and our team's incredible. So I've been particularly I've always been fortunate to work with the team that I have, but I think in challenging years like this one, it's when you notice it the most because it's been uplifting and it's been humbling and it's been really exciting despite everything that's going on and that went on this year to work with people like the one I have the pleasure to work with. So one of the key takeaways is I have a great team. I'm part of a great team, and I'm really happy for that. That would be number one. Number two, I guess, it's just around family. I mean, again, uh, like some other people, I'm sure I've had the chance to spend a lot more time with the family. I didn't travel, and I used to travel a lot. So for me, this year has been very good, and sometimes I actually very thankful for the year that I've been having at a personal level, just because I've had the opportunity to hang out with my kids as much as I have, travel a bit less. I do miss it a little bit because I enjoy traveling, but it's been a really good year in that regards. And I guess number three is we're lucky and thankful, right? Because logistics, we're in an industry that's always going to be needed. The pandemic definitely highlighted a lot of different shortcomings, not only in the supply chains of different companies and our clients, but just in general as a global industry that we are. And so we're, yeah, I think compared to other industries, we still had a fair amount of challenges. It was tough, but freight needs to keep going, and logistics will continue to exist. So we're we're thankful and humbled for that as well, because we have the opportunity to keep working and keep investing in our company. And we didn't really have the uh, I guess I wasn't in the horrible position of having to let people go
Mm.
for not having enough business. And I think that's something that I really cherish and consider a highlight of this year for me.
Yes, you've got to be one of the most considerate business leaders I've rubbed elbows with, and that comes from a
Thanks.
very genuine spot, Enrique. It's always about others, and that's what makes it so neat to collaborate with y'all as much as we do. Um, let's and going to your one of your final points you made there. I've seen so many different studies as it relates to the growth of freight, and especially in the next couple of years, whether it's states putting out information or countries or regions, but all of them point to the growth, the sheer amount of logistics infrastructure we're going to have in place to handle 60, 70, 80% more freight on top of today's volumes. It's just amazing. I think 82% was what a figure that the state of South Carolina here in the States put in place over the next couple of years in terms of capacity growth. So no shortage of challenges there.
No.
Let's switch gears just a smidge and kind of building on your key takeaways from 2020. What's one big personal eureka moment you had based on what you've experienced this year?
Well, I think I've had many different ones, right, at different levels. Again, I probably like any other entrepreneur, I'm actually playing. I have different hats and I have different roles and responsibilities. So there's been certainly many, but in terms of eureka moments, for me, just what happened, and I think continues to happen at a much lesser extent with PPE. I think that was just kind of crazy at the beginning, and then interesting, and it's just we weren't ready to fulfill the demand of masks and face shields and gloves and wipes, and so just hand sanitizer even, right? And so from like someone that kind of um, works in logistics and owns a logistics company, just kind of knowing that even though I felt that we had a pretty good forecasting tools and control and risk management tools and everything that we needed to provide the service that we provide to our customers, we're short. And I think a lot of us kind of felt that way when we just couldn't bring it PPE quick enough to the US. And this is the strongest economy in the world, the best country in the world for many different reasons, and we just still couldn't manage.
Yeah, really speaking to the challenges that any part of the world had
Correct.
in 2020. It was very a level setting, complex, challenging environment for all. That's a great point.
Especially because you feel like we're in the US, right? And you feel like, well, yeah, well,
Insulated.
we heard it coming, right? A lot of countries were struggling, but we always, or at least me personally, was living in a little bit of a rosier bubble than what it really is. And then, yeah, the pandemic basically bursted
Well, there's a
very
short list
quickly.
of there's a short list of folks that I think really got it early on of just
Yeah.
how bad it's going to be, and I would add you to that list. I remember being in. We talk about this a lot because for us, our business, Modex, was the last in-person event that we attended in March 2020. And after Modex, we haven't conducted a single in-person interview. And I'm ashamed to say it, but even at Modex, when it was starting to reach through everyone else's mind, it still wasn't quite setting in of just how much different life would be. And I think you already had a read in advance than many others. Enrique, you seem to kind of know what lied ahead.
Well, and it wasn't really because I'm a visionary or anything like that. We saw it with our good friends and partners in China, right? I mean, we started sending PPE from Mexico and other parts of the world into China when they started having this back in November last year. So again, I think that me personally saw it coming, and I knew that it was going to be have a big impact. But again, I always felt that it was going to be a little bit less than what it was, just because we were sitting here in the U.S. And I guess that's something that's also important to notice and get ready, because that's something that's going to change going
Right.
forward when we have to be even more prepared.
Well, see, I was hoping you would embrace that title of visionary for this next question, Enrique, because we want you to break out your crystal ball. And as we move into 2021, what's one thing that supply chain professionals or leaders should maybe keep their eyes on?
Well, right now there's a container shortage, right? So 2021 for me, it's still going to be uh, because the result of what 2020 has been, right? So hopefully not when it comes to the horrible stories about people getting sick or deaths and the vaccines coming. So I'm very hopeful when it comes to that. But when it comes to the actual shipping of products around, I don't think we're near to see the end of it, right? I think the blow to the imbalance that this pandemic has caused around the world will still have a very uh, strong ripple effect well into probably 2022. So for me, next year, from a logistics standpoint, it's going to be a lot of the same, if you will, in terms of equipment shortage, congestion of the ports, higher demands than supply for transportation, not enough truck drivers, not enough trucking companies available to pull enough chassis. Chassis is going to be key as well. So yeah, you got to be prepared. You got to plan ahead, and if you before you took a couple of weeks, maybe 10 days, even before you're scheduling your deliveries and your pickups, I think that next year is going to be a little bit of the same or even more. Companies should be, I guess, yeah, having a little bit more of a negative outlook and planning well in advance, a lot more than what they've been doing this year.
So I'm going to sneak another question in. I know that you advise a lot of early stage companies, and you're one of those that, like me and Greg and many others, you love a great entrepreneurial story and journey. And we have a lot of those conversations here on your series and others. So if you had to, speak from put your entrepreneur hat on and kind of speak to others or speak to startups in the space, supply chain and otherwise, for the path ahead, what's one piece of advice based on your experience and all of your growth and success you would point to others?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. And I would say it's a mix of what's really the same, in my opinion, that makes companies successful. Is I think investing in the culture is going to be key. I think one of the, I guess, another eureka moment for this year is just how technology has been transformed and how business meetings have been evolved. And we see it in schools with my kids, right? I mean, they've been the whole year remotely, and you see it in interactions like the one you and I are having right now. I mean, we'll
Right.
probably have this conversation here at King Plow over lunch, but so I think this has been a very interesting year for technology when it comes to the way it relates to communication and human interactions, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forward. Now, apply that to logistics. I think it could mean tons of different things, right? From like virtual interactions like this with warehouse workers to trucking companies to um, freight forwarders. I think there's going to be a lot of that in that kind of particular area. Supply chain technology, I think, is going to be, it's already hot, but I think
Right.
it's going to get even hotter in the next couple of years.
You're right. There's been a ton of funding activities going on in that space. In fact, just today, I think Project 44, or in the last few days, Project 44, I think raised $100 million as reported by the Wall
Wow.
Street Journal. And that comes on the heels of Flock Freight and many others. So to your point, making your supply chains more visible,
Yep.
streamlining the communication across upstream and downstream, internal and external partners, and bottom line, getting things to where they need to go at the right price and in an expedited fashion when on a committed date. Whatever technology goes into making that happen, there's a lot of investing, a
I
lot of
think,
interested
yeah,
investors.
absolutely right. And just the systems are going to be important. I mean, they've always been important, but I think that having certain things taken care by systems as opposed to just like strong organizations. I think you need both. You need an incredible culture. You need a very strong organization. But I think on top of all of that, you will also need like very smart and well developed systems.
Agreed. Agreed. All right. So we mentioned the two series. Of course, Logistics with Purpose has been around for over a year, very well received. We've had just a slew of outstanding interviews here recently. David and Meta Robinson, which is part of the Jackie Robinson family. Steve Sterling, Dr. Steve Sterling, which has an incredible story. Dale with Good Gigs, Stevenson, I think is
Yeah.
his last name.
Yeah.
You name it. Ton of
Patrick, Books for Africa. Yeah, we've had a like really, really fun year when it comes to like the interviews for that series, for sure.
agreed. But as if that wasn't enough, you added your latest challenge and endeavor to the stable, and that's Supply Chain Now in Espanol. So I want to get a sneak peek of what's to come on both. But before we do, there's a great why for Supply Chain Now in Espanol, because there's not a ton of supply chain best practices offered in a digital medium in the Spanish language, right?
That is correct, and I think it's just a reflection of the things that I've been participating on, thanks to you and Greg and your team at Supply Chain Now. I feel like that's just a very logical extension of the work that you've been doing, and I think it speaks incredibly high from you, Amanda, Clay, and everyone, because I I enjoy the conversations that you're having, and so are enjoying it. A lot of different fans that that log in and hear the podcast or hear the YouTube interviews. And so for something in Spanish, I thought that it would be incredibly important for Latin America, um, for people to enjoy those conversations. I think they're not only interesting, but I think they're making our community even smaller. And I think there's a lot of synergies that you're starting to find out, right? I mean, I know that some of your people that you interview for one show maybe then have a connection through you on your show with other people that are listening, and just kind of like bringing the community closer together through technology and through the Supply Chain Now network, if you will. It's very important. I didn't want Latin America to be left out. I think they're a very fast growing region of the world, a lot of areas of opportunity, a little bit underdeveloped in many, sometimes trailing behind the US and Europe by a couple of years. And so for me, I felt that that was something that would be interesting to do, and also, of course, relevant. And I'm not gonna lie, I mean, it's gonna be fun. I've never been a host of any show. I've never been a celebrity like you, Scott. People
Whatever.
don't stop me in the street to asking for autographs like they do to you and Greg. But it sounds fun. I mean, you're enjoying it.
Hey, we're having the time of our life, and it's about, to your point, building and making that community, global community, smaller, connecting with people, connecting with stories, connecting with best practices and challenges, learning learning while our community learns the same way, at the same time. And to your point, it's not about, we love the U.S. market and we love the industry here and the business here, but it is about the global community. And this supply chain now in Espanol is just the first of several international expansions we're making to really serve different geographic regions and bring the business world together with a strong supply chain bend. So appreciate what you do there. Appreciate you leading that new series, especially given my English language limitations, which are very real. All right. So if you had just one coming attraction or so to share with each of those series to our listeners here, what would that be?
Yeah, no. So I'll start with the supply chain now in Espanol, and I already lined up a couple really interesting interviews with business leaders both in Mexico and Chile, and so we'll start with that, and then we also have a really good conversation with Demos in Panama, and of course, Panama, as people know in logistics, is a very important hub for logistics because that's kind of the Canal de Panama. It's incredibly important. So it's going to be very interesting for the 2 or 3 conversations that I already have that we're probably launching late January once we complete a couple of extra steps in that. I think it's going to be interesting, and I think people are going to be, interested in learning about this business leaders, entrepreneurs that are in everywhere in the world, but in Latin America for this particular series, and hopefully younger people that are coming into logistics will be able to relate to them. Hopefully, companies and organizations will be able to um, learn from them, or at least get inspired by their experiences. And of course, for me and the people being interviewed, I think it's a good opportunity to share to share and become a voice to people that are doing things right and to people that are really trying to make a positive impact in the world.
Well said. Well said. It's been such a rewarding journey to be with you on just these 2 series. And I should take the gist out because they have been Logistics with Purpose, of course, has been just fascinating to see some of the folks that were in my blind spot for sure, some of the stories in my blind spot. And you and the Vector team, you use your global reach to bring these stories front and center here. So I appreciate what you and your team do, Adrian and Matilda, and so many others that make up the team that's played a part. So appreciate that. Let's make sure that folks know. And by the way, you were alluding to some of those things. Some of the steps in the process. I think you're earning your executive producer wings, Enrique. Right?
Well, I'm certainly hope that I can do a little bit of what you do, and I'm learning from the best. So I have no excuse to fail because I'm kind of following the footsteps of great people when it comes to hosting and
You're
supply chain now. So
You're too kind. Hey, kindred spirits. We're part of the Mutual Admiration Club, as one of our
and
guests
it's
put it
just
the other
fun.
day.
I mean, I'm at the end of the day. I mean, we have a serious reason why I think this is important, but it's fun too. I mean,
Right.
I really enjoy talking to smart, interesting individuals, and that kind of makes my weeks go by faster, and they bring a little bit more meaning. And of course, everything starts to feed into the same thing, right? You surround yourself with interesting, smart, proactive, and highly driven individuals, and all of a sudden you kind of start to feel a little bit of that. It kind of rubs a little bit on you, and you feel more energized. So,
Right.
so
Hey,
I'm doing it for that too. Though not gonna lie, right?
you're preaching to the choir, and that's certainly one of the outstanding and probably not mentioned enough
I
byproducts
agree.
of this journey. So, all right. So let's make sure folks know how to connect with one Enrique Alvarez. What's the easiest way?
Sure. I think the fastest, easiest way is through LinkedIn. You can search my name, Enrique Alvarez Vector. If you search by those 3 words, I think you'll get me. If not, you can also go to our webpage at vectorgl.com. Or if you want to shoot me an email, it's enrique.alvarez at vectorgl, as in Vector Global Logistics, vectorgl.com as well.
Perfect. And of course, we're after that one-click connection. We'll include all that in the show notes of today's episode. Enrique Alvarez, Managing Director with Vector Global Logistics and Executive Producer, host director, researcher, all with Logistics with Purpose and Supply Chain in Espanol. So look forward to coming attractions there. Thanks so much, Enrique.
Gracias a ti, Scott, que tengas un buen día y espero que todo el mundo nos escuche en Supply Chain Now en español.
Awesome. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. To our listeners, hopefully you've enjoyed this brief conversation as much as I have. Enrique has been a trusted and invigorating partner in this journey, and love the content that he and the team have been creating. And there's a lot more coming. So you can check out most of that. If you like this conversation, check us out at supplychainnow.com. Find us and subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts, and give us feedback. What are we not covering? What are we covering too much of? What issue or topic deserves more airtime, more eyeballs and eardrums? Let us know. But beyond all that, on behalf of the entire team here at Supply Chain Now, this is Scott Luton and Enrique Alvarez, wishing you nothing but the best. Hey, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. Be like Enrique. And on that note, we'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
You bet.